The attic smelled of dust and forgotten promises, the kind that clung to the rafters like spiderwebs after a rainstorm. Jacob's fingers trembled as he pried open the warped wooden trunk, its hinges screeching like a confession long overdue. There, beneath yellowed photographs of stern-faced ancestors, lay a single envelope, sealed with wax that had cracked like a broken heart, addressed in his grandfather's looping script to no one at all. "Damn it, Elias," Jacob whispered, his voice cracking in the empty house, the words tasting like ash on his tongue. He'd come back to Willow Creek for the funeral, not this. A ghost's final plea that shattered the lie his family had buried deeper than the old man himself. The letter spilled out like blood from a vein, words blurring through Jacob's tears. "I loved him, boy, and they made me forget. Don't let them make you." Jacob slammed the car door harder than he meant to, the echo bouncing off the sagging porch of the family farmhouse like a gunshot in the quiet Adirondack twilight. Willow Creek, New York, population 1,247, give or take a stray deer, hadn't changed since he'd bolted at 18, chasing the neon haze of Manhattan's anonymity. Now, at 28, he was back, tail between his legs. The city's relentless pulse traded for this suffocating small-town hush. The funeral had been that morning. A Methodist service with more platitudes than tears, his mother dabbing her eyes with a lace hanky while whispering about God's plan for Elias Hawthorne's sudden heart attack. Jacob had stood there in his ill-fitting black suit, nodding like a puppet, the weight of unspoken grief pressing on his chest like a millstone. He'd always been the black sheep, the city boy who wrote poetry instead of hunting, who preferred folk records to football cheers. And the rest? The part where he'd kiss boys in shadowed bars and wake up hollow? That stayed locked in the closet, bolted shut with family expectations thicker than the maple syrup they poured at Sunday breakfasts. Elias had been the only one who'd ever hinted at understanding, with his twinkling eyes and cryptic stories of adventures before the war. But Elias was gone now, leaving Jacob to sort the remnants alone while his mother fluttered about downstairs, organizing casseroles from the church ladies. The attic was his escape, a labyrinth of crates and cobwebs that smelled faintly of pipe tobacco and regret. Jacob wasn't sure why he'd climbed up there after the mourners left. Maybe the bourbon from Uncle Ray's flask had loosened something reckless in him. Or maybe it was the way Elias's eyes had lingered on him during their last visit, 6 months back, as if passing a torch Jacob didn't know he was meant to carry. The trunk was tucked in the farthest corner, half buried under a quilt his grandmother had stitched before the Alzheimer's stole her stitch by stitch. It was locked, but the key hung from a nail nearby, rusted but serviceable, like Elias had left it as an invitation. Inside, the air shifted cooler, heavier, as if the past itself exhaled. Faded photos first. Elias in his army greens, grinning beside a foxhole in Korea. Young Jacob on a fishing trip, gap-toothed and fearless. The family Bible with births and deaths etched in fading ink. Then the envelope, crisp against the decay. Its wax seal imprinted with a simple thistle, Elias's favorite, he'd said, for its thorns and bloom. Jacob's heart stuttered as he broke it open, the paper crackling like dry leaves underfoot. "My dearest unknown, if you're reading this, I'm dust, and the world's still spinning its lies. I was 22 when I met Thomas Riley in a Brooklyn speakeasy. The kind where jazz bled into the walls and men like us could breathe without apology. He had eyes like the Hudson at dawn, and a laugh that cut through the bootleg gin haze. We built a life in shadows, stolen weekends in the Catskills, letters hidden in book spines. But the war came, and with it, the whispers. They called it deviance when they drummed me out, shipped me west to straighten up in some mill town. Thomas? He vanished into the draft, a casualty of more than bullets. I married your grandmother because that's what you did. Buried the truth under white lace and babies. But every night, I'd trace his name in the frost on the window, wondering if he ever forgave me for surviving. They erased us, son. The family, the town, the whole damn country. Burned letters, tore photos, whispered sins into silence. But you're my blood, and I see it in you. The way you flinch at handshakes, the poetry you hide like contraband. Don't let them erase you too. Find your Thomas. Love fierce even if it breaks you. The thistle blooms through stone. Elias Hawthorne, 1953. Sealed for the one who needs it most. Jacob's knees buckled, the letter fluttering to the floorboards like a wounded bird. 60 years of secrets, inked in a hand that trembled only at the end. Elias, stoic Elias, who taught him to whittle whistles from birch and quoted Whitman under starlit skies, had been like him. Gay. Erased. The word hit like a freight train, splintering the facade Jacob had built brick by painful brick. He thought of his own hidden life. The grinder hookups that left him emptier than before. The family dinners where he'd laugh too loud at Uncle Ray's homophobic jabs to deflect the sting. Alone. Always alone. Downstairs, the screen door creaked. Jacob? You up there, honey? His mother's voice, laced with that Midwestern lilt she'd never shaken, even after decades in New York State. He shoved the letter into his jacket pocket, heart pounding like a war drum. Yeah, Ma. Just sorting. By the time he descended, the attic's chill clung to him like a second skin. Dinner was meatloaf and mashed potatoes, the table set for ghosts, Elias's chair empty, a half-folded napkin beside it. His mother, Lydia, picked at her peas, her silver-streaked hair pinned back in a bun that said practical more than pretty. Your Uncle Ray mentioned the mill's hiring. Temporary, but steady. You could stay on, help with the farm. Jacob forced a smile, the letter burning against his ribs. I'm thinking about it. Cities. Loud. Lies, all of it. He was a freelance graphic designer now, scraping by on remote gigs, but Willow Creek felt like regression. A step back into the boy who'd prayed his crushes on the quarterback would fade like summer heat. After she retired to her crosswords, Jacob slipped out to the back porch, the October air crisp with the promise of frost. The Riley farm was visible across the creek, a silhouette of silos against the moon-pale hills. Thomas Riley. The name echoed in his mind, a breadcrumb trail to a past he'd never known. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying. Thomas Riley, Brooklyn, 1940s. Obituaries, grainy census records, a faded photo from a veteran's archive, dark hair, easy smile, gone at 24 in a foxhole somewhere in Italy. Jacob's throat tightened, erased just like Elias said. Sleep evaded him that night, the house groaning like it mourned too. By dawn, resolve hardened in his gut. He'd stay not for the mill but for answers, for the thistle. He drove into town, past the diner where locals swapped gossip over black coffee, and pulled up to the Willow Creek Library, a squat brick building that doubled as historical society. Ms. Hargrove, the librarian since Eisenhower, peered over her bifocals as he stammered his request. Elias Hawthorne? Oh dear, such a pillar. She bustled to the archives, returning with a binder of clipped articles. Local hero returns from war, Hawthorne Mill expands under new management. No mention of Brooklyn, no shadows of scandal. But tucked in the back, a dog-eared yearbook from 42. Elias and Thomas, arms slung casual around shoulders, grins wide as the East River. High school sweethearts? Jacob ventured, voice barely above a whisper. Ms. Hargrove's eyes softened, a flicker of something ancient crossing her face. Water under the bridge, dear. Folks don't talk about that era much. She paused, glancing at the door. But if you're family, there's a box in storage. Elias dropped it off years ago. Said it was for when the time's right. The box was cardboard, taped shut with yellowing scotch, labeled personally. In the reading room, under the hum of fluorescent lights, Jacob sliced it open. More letters, dozens, bundled with twine. Thomas's handwriting, bold and looping. Miss you in the city lights, Eli. Come back soon. Photos. 2 men on a pier, wind-tousled, hands brushing accidental on purpose. Pressed thistle brittle as bone. Hours blurred. Jacob read until his eyes burned, piecing together fragments of a love story clipped short by fear. Elias enlisting to escape rumors, Thomas following suit out of loyalty. The discharge papers, stamped undesirable, buried under marriage certificates. It wasn't just history erased. It was a life, whole and human, scrubbed clean for the sake of normalcy. As the library clock struck 5, a shadow fell across the table. Digging up bones, Hawthorne? The voice was low, teasing, with a city edge that didn't belong in Willow Creek. Jacob looked up, startled. The man leaning against the shelf was all contrasts. Broad shoulders under a wool peacoat, tousled auburn hair falling over hazel eyes that sparked with curiosity. Mid-20s, maybe, with a jawline shadowed by stubble and a smile that crooked like he knew too many secrets. "Ryan Ellis," the stranger said, extending a hand. "Reporter for the Albany Gazette. Heard about the funeral, small towns, word travels. Elias was influential around here." Jacob shook it, pulse skipping at the warmth lingering in the grip. "Jacob Hawthorne, grandson. Yeah, influential." He gestured vaguely at the box. "Just family history." Ryan's gaze sharpened, flicking to the open letter. "The Thistle Brigade, huh? I've heard whispers. Old mill workers say Elias had a war buddy he never forgot." He pulled up a chair uninvited, elbows on the table. "Mind if I take a look? Off the record." Something in Ryan's tone, earnest, edged with his own hidden hunger, made Jacob hesitate, then nod. As Ryan scanned the pages, his brow furrowed, lips parting in quiet awe. "This is gold. Not for scandal but for truth. America buried so many stories like this." They talked until closing, words tumbling easy as creek water. Ryan was from Albany, chasing features on rural revitalization, but his eyes lit when Jacob mentioned Thomas. "My great-uncle was like that, World War II vet, never married. Family said he was devoted to the flag. Code for." He trailed off, a shadow crossing his face. Outside, under sodium street lamps, Ryan lingered by Jacob's truck. "Stick around, Hawthorne. Willow Creek could use a poet with a spine." His hand brushed Jacob's arm. "Accidental electric. Dinner tomorrow? My treat. Neutral ground, like the diner." Jacob's laugh was rusty. "You're on, Ellis." As he drove home, the letter safe in his glove box, the weight lifted fractionally. For the first time, alone didn't feel quite so absolute. The diner smelled of grease and nostalgia, Formica counters scarred from decades of coffee rings and heartbreak confessions. Jacob slid into the booth at 6:45 sharp, nerves jangling like loose change in his pocket. He'd swapped the suit for jeans and a flannel that smelled faintly of his old Brooklyn apartment. Lavender detergent and regret. Ryan arrived 5 minutes late, wind blown from the drive, carrying a notebook tucked under his arm like a shield. "Sorry, dear, on the road. These hills are full of ghosts." Ryan's grin disarmed, settling across from him with a menu flap. "Pancakes or pie? Tradition says both." They ordered the lumberjack special, stacks towering with sausage links, and talked around the edges at first. Ryan's beat covering upstate quirks, Jacob's stalled graphic design career, the way Willow Creek's leaves turned blood red come November. But the letters hovered, unspoken, until Ryan leaned in, voice dropping. "That box, it's dynamite. You thinking of going public?" Jacob forked a bite, syrup pooling bittersweet. "Public? Ma would disown me faster than you can say family honor. Uncle Ray's already side-eyeing me for not having a nice girl yet." The words hung, laced with the truth he hadn't voiced. The girls were beards, thin as onion skin, and the boys? Fleeting shadows in a life built on evasion. Ryan's eyes held steady, no judgment, just a mirror of his own quiet battles. "Honor's overrated when it's built on lies. My folks in Albany, old-school Irish Catholic, still pray the gay away at me. Phase, they call it. Like I'm a bad haircut." He chuckled, but it cracked, revealing the fracture beneath. "Elias's story is yours too, and mine. We deserve the ink." By pie apple a la mode, the barrier crumbled. Jacob spilled it. The hookups that felt like theft, the poetry scrawled in journals he burned on bad nights, the ache of loving in silence. Ryan listened, head tilted, fingers drumming a rhythm on the table that echoed some half-remembered blues tune. "You're not alone, Jake. Never were. That letter? It's a map out." They walked the creek path after, gravel crunching under boots, the water murmuring secrets to the willows. Ryan's shoulder brushed his once, twice, until it lingered, a question in the contact. Jacob's breath hitched, the air thick with pine and possibility. "Why me?" he asked, stopping by the footbridge where Elias used to fish. "Because you look like you need a co-conspirator." Ryan's voice was soft, close. Their eyes met, and in that suspended heartbeat, Jacob saw Thomas in Elias's letters. Fierce, unapologetic. He leaned in, tentative, lips grazing Ryan's in a kiss that tasted of cinnamon and courage. It deepened slow, hands finding waists, the world narrowing to the rush of pulse and river. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed. "That wasn't planned," Ryan murmured, thumb tracing Jacob's jaw. "Lies suit us," Jacob quipped, but his heart thundered victory. Back at the farmhouse, Lydia was knitting in the rocker, needles clicking like Morse code. "Good evening." Her eyes, sharp as ever, missed nothing. The flush on his cheeks, the looseness in his step. "Yeah, ma. Met a friend. Reporter." He kissed her forehead. The letters weight lighter now. Shared. Sleep came easier. Dreams weaving Elias and Thomas with Ryan's laugh. Thistles blooming wild. The next week blurred in a rhythm of discovery. Mornings, Jacob sorted the attic, unearthing more relics. A tarnished dog tag engraved TR. A jazz record scratched with initials ENT. Afternoons, he'd meet Ryan at the library, cross-referencing archives for threads of the past. Ms. Hargrove became an ally, slipping him microfilm reels after hours, her whispers conspiratorial. "Your granddad saved my brother's life in Korea. Men like them, they carried more than guns." Evenings were theirs, stolen hours at Ryan's rented cabin on the outskirts. A clabbered A-frame with a stone fireplace and views of the ridge. No grand gestures, just quiet unraveling. Cooking chili from cans, reading poetry aloud. Whitman for Elias, Ocean Vuong for them. Ryan's touch was reverent, mapping Jacob's skin like uncharted land. Kisses that spoke of healing fractures. "You're the thistle," Ryan said one night, tangled in sheets, moonlight striping the walls. Tough roots, beautiful fight. Jacob believed him in those moments, but Willow Creek's undercurrents stirred. Uncle Ray cornered him at the gas station, pump handle clicking accusatory. "Heard you're sniffing around old dirt with that city slicker. Elias wouldn't want scandal, boy. We Hawthorns keep clean." "It's truth, uncle, not dirt." Jacob's voice held, but his hands shook, filling the tank. Ray's laugh was bark dry. "Truth? In this town, you'll drag us all down. Like your granddad almost did, back in the day." The words landed like hooks, yanking buried fears. That night, over beer on the porch, Jacob told Ryan, voice raw. "What if he's right? What if I ruin everything?" Ryan pulled him close, breath warm against his temple. "Then we rebuild. Together." They pushed forward, drafting an article for Ryan's paper. Not a tell-all, but a tribute. Echoes of the Erased. One veteran's hidden love. Jacob's illustrations accompanied it. Ink sketches of thistles piercing stone, silhouettes embracing under stars. Submission sent, they waited, breath held. The backlash brewed slow. Whispers at the diner, sidelong glances at the post office. Lydia found a draft on the kitchen table, her face paling as she read. "Jacob Elias Hawthorne," she said, voice steel-wrapped hurt. This is about your grandfather. It's about love, Ma. His love. Ours." The admission slipped, raw and real. She sank into a chair, hands twisting her apron. "I knew. Suspected after the war. He came home. Different. Hollow. Your grandma begged him to stay for the family. He did, but pieces of him stayed in Brooklyn." Tears welled, uncharacteristic. "I buried it for him. For us. Don't make me bury you too." The plea gutted him. "I'm not hiding anymore." She reached for his hand, grip fierce. "Then don't hide from me." Pivotal words. A bridge extended. But the storm broke Friday, ink still wet on the Gazette's presses. Uncle Ray stormed the farmhouse at dawn, Newspaper crumpled in his fist, face thunderous. "You traitorous little—" The slap echoed before Jacob could dodge, cheek blooming hot. Ryan burst in minutes later, alerted by a frantic call, pulling Ray off with a shove. "Get out or I swear." Ray spat on the threshold. "Queers like you poisoned him. Elias was weak, and now you finished the job." He stormed to his truck, tires spinning gravel like accusations. Bruised but unbroken, Jacob leaned on Ryan, the article clutched like armor. He knew about Elias all along. Ryan's arms tightened, and he chose hate. "We choose us." The piece hit stands that afternoon. Willow Creek's lone newsstand mobbed. Calls flooded. Shock. Support. Silence. Ms. Hargrove pinned it to the library bulletin. Thistle sketch prominent. Strangers stopped Jacob on the street. "My uncle too." Or "Thank you." Cracks in the facade. Light seeping through. But betrayal's shadow loomed. Late that night, as Jacob and Ryan pored over responses by firelight, his phone buzzed. An anonymous text. "Check the mill basement before they burn it all." Heart sinking, Jacob drove alone, Ryan protesting from the porch. The old Hawthorne mill loomed dark, windows like empty eyes. Flashlight beam dancing. He descended creaky stairs, air thick with mildew and malice. There, against the far wall, a makeshift pyre. Letters, photos, Elias's war journal, doused in kerosene. Uncle Ray's lighter fluid, signature scent. Jacob's blood ran cold. Ray's truck idled outside, engine humming threat. "Can't let you destroy us," Ray growled from the shadows, matchbook in hand. Jacob's voice cracked whip-sharp. "It's already destroyed. By you." The match flared, climax igniting. Flames licked the edges of the journal first, greedy tongues devouring Thomas's faded script, the ink curling black like screams silenced. Jacob lunged, tackling Ray against the boiler, the match skittering across concrete in a shower of sparks. "You bastard," he gasped, fists pounding the betrayal that had festered for generations. Ray bucked, elbow connecting with Jacob's ribs in a crack of pain, but fury fueled Jacob, a thistle's rage unyielding. The older man wheezed, face twisted in the flashlight's glare. "For the family. He shamed us, parading with that Riley trash. I covered it up, burned the evidence after he died. You think I want my sister's boy ruined? Same." Jacob pinned him, breath ragged. "Ruined? Or free?" Sirens wailed distant. Someone in the mill yard must have seen the truck. Ray sagged, fight draining like air from a punctured tire. Cuffs clicking as deputies hauled him up. Ryan arrived as they loaded Ray into the cruiser, face ashen under the rotating lights. "Jesus, Jake, what happened?" "Family tradition," Jacob muttered, clutching the singed journal, pages smoldering but salvaged. They stood in the chill, arms wrapped mutual, as flames sputtered out under extinguisher foam. He tried to finish what they started. Erase it all. The arrest made front-page fodder next day. Local man attempts arson over family secrets, eclipsing their tribute. Reporters swarmed the farmhouse, microphones thrusting like bayonets. Lydia faced them stone-faced, arm linked through Jacob's. "My father was a hero. My son is too. Leave it at that." In the quiet aftermath, wounds surfaced. Ray's arraignment loomed, bail denied for flight risk, his wife, Jacob's aunt. Glaring daggers from the gallery. Whispers branded Jacob the instigator. City queer stirring trouble. Gigs dried up, clients citing distractions. The farm's well pump failed. Repair bills stacking like indictments. Ryan stayed, anchoring through the gale. Mornings brewing coffee strong as resolve. Nights tracing bruises with gentle fingers. "This is the climax, babe. The break before dawn." His article follow-up, From Ashes. Willow Creek confronts its past, garnered national pickup, NPR interviews that painted Elias not as scandal, but saint. A veteran whose love mirrored the nation's buried valor. Yet doubt gnawed Jacob, betrayal's echo. One rainy Tuesday, alone in the attic, he unfolded the original letter, Elias's words blurring anew. "Love fierce even if it breaks you. Had he broken his mother? The town? Ray's hate wasn't vacuum-born. It stemmed from a father's silence, a community's complicity. Lydia found him there, thermos steaming in hand. Chamomile, for the nerves. She sat on a crate, skirts pooling, eyes tracing the rafters as if reading constellations. Your uncle. He was 10 when the rumors hit. Folks shunned us at church, called Elias unnatural. Ray took it hardest, vowed to protect the name. Foolish boy. Jacob's throat tightened. You knew. All this time. She nodded, slow. Loved him anyway. He was my dad, flaws and all. Like I'll love you, Jacob Elias. Flaws blooming. Her hand covered his, calloused from years of tilling truth under soil. Write his story. All of it. Emboldened, Jacob dove deeper. With Ryan's research savvy, they uncovered more. Thomas's sister, still alive in a Buffalo nursing home, clutching a locket with Elias's photo inside. A weekend drive yielded tearful tapes. Her voice quavering. Tommy adored him. Said Eli was his North Star. The war stole him, but the hate, that lingered. Back home, they hosted a vigil at the Creek Bridge. 50 souls braving November drizzle. Lanterns flickering like fireflies. Ms. Hargrove read from the journal. A local fiddler played Shenandoah. Notes weaving through mist. Ryan spoke last, voice steady. Elias and Thomas remind us. Love isn't erased. It endures, thistle-strong. Jacob followed, journal in hand, words pouring. They taught me to love without apology. To you, Ryan, my North Star. The kiss they shared then, public and unashamed, drew applause mingled with murmurs, a town teetering on transformation. But conflict crested again, insidious. Anonymous letters arrived. Poison pen missives slipped under doors. Hawthorne whore, burn the queer. One night, rocks shattered the cabin's window, glass spraying like shrapnel. Ryan, bleeding from a shard, laughed it off. Battle scars poet. But Jacob saw the fear flicker mirroring his own. The betrayal cut deepest from within. At Ray's hearing, his aunt cornered Jacob in the hall, voice venom hissed. You killed him, my Ray, good man till you poisoned the well. She slapped a folder into his chest. Divorce papers, farm liens, whispers of contesting Elias's will. We'll take it all, for the shame you brought. Devastated, Jacob drove to the ridge overlook, rain lashing the windshield like judgment. Ryan found him there, soaked and shivering. She bluffing? Worse. She's got Uncle's ear, lawyers circling. Jacob's voice broke. I can't fight them and keep you safe. Ryan cupped his face, rain-streaked. Safety's overrated without you. We're in this fierce. They made love that night in the truck, urgent and tender, reclaiming agency amid chaos. Dawn brought resolve. Consult a lawyer, fortify the will with affidavits from Ms. Hargrove, the vigil attendees. Elias's assets, mill shares, land, weren't just inheritance. They were legacy, thistle-rooted. Holiday lights twinkled premature as Thanksgiving neared, Willow Creek stringing resilience. Lydia hosted a small feast, turkey, pies, Ryan at the table like kin. Toasts rose, to Elias, to truth. But undercurrents swirled. Ray's trial date set for January, charges escalating to felony with hate crime enhancements. Jacob's poetry found voice in a chapbook, Thistles in Stone, self-published via Ryan's contacts. Launch at the library drew a crowd, sold out, signings till midnight. A reviewer from the New York Times called it a quiet revolution, American as apple pie and forbidden kisses. Yet the emotional toll mounted. Sleepless nights, Jacob paced, ghosts whispering doubts. Ryan, sensing the fracture, planned a getaway. 2 days at a cabin deeper in the Adirondacks, snowshoeing trails blanketed white. Reset, he said, packing thermoses of cocoa. The woods enveloped them, pines whispering absolution. By a frozen lake, bonfire crackling. Ryan pulled a box from his pack, small, velvet. Not a ring, not yet, but a promise. Inside, twin thistle pendants, silver forged. Wear mine, I'll wear yours. Bound, not buried. Jacob fastened it, chain cool against skin, tears freezing on lashes. "I love you," he said, first time voiced. Ryan's response was a kiss, deep as roots. Back in Willow, renewal stirred. The mill, long shuttered, buzzed with proposals. A co-op for local artisans. Jacob's designs on signage. Ray's wife backed down. Liens dropped after community pressure. Vigil signatures turned petitions. But climax echoed in a midnight call. Ray, from county lockup, demanding a visit. Jacob went alone. Plexiglass between them, voices tinny through vents. "Nephew," Ray rasped, hollow-eyed. "I was wrong. Protecting. It was fear. Your granddad. He forgave worse." Jacob's heart twisted. Forgive or forget? Ray's nod was weary. Both. For peace. He slid a key under the partition to a safe deposit box in Albany. Elias's last gift. "For you." Inside the box. Bonds enough to save the farm. A final letter from Thomas, dated 1943. "If I don't come back, know I loved you whole." And a photo, Elias and Thomas, wedding bands glinting, taken in secret. Humanity's thread, mending. Jacob left lighter. Betrayal transmuted to understanding's ache. Winter clamped Willow Creek in iron jaws. Snow drifts piling like unresolved sins against the farmhouse eaves. Jacob woke to Ryan's side of the bed empty, the scent of bacon wafting from below. Lydia's new ritual, roping her son's love into breakfast brigade. The pendants clinked soft as they dressed, talismans against the cold. Ray's key unlocked more than bonds. It unearthed a network of allies. Thomas's sister, Evelyn, visited post-holidays, frail but fierce in a wool coat, bearing albums of Brooklyn youth. Elias arm-in-arm with Tommy at Coney Island, cotton candy smears on cheeks. "He wrote me after," she confided over tea, voice a whisper of waves. "Said you'd carry the light, Jacob. His grandson, the poet." The co-op bloomed tentative. Artists from Albany commuting, potters and weavers claiming mill looms. Jacob designed the logo, a thistle entwined with a mill wheel, earning nods from skeptics. Ryan's series, Roots Unearthed, serialized in the Gazette, humanized the hurt. Profiles of other erased locals, veteran sons sharing hushed tales. But romance's warmth frayed under friction's grind. Late nights, Ryan hunched over laptop, deadlines devouring dinners. "One more interview," he'd mutter, oblivious to Jacob's cooling plate. Exhaustion bred barbs. "You're chasing ghosts while I'm fighting real ones." Ryan's retort stung true. "We're the same fight, Jake. Can't you see?" Isolation crept, betrayal's aftertaste. Jacob buried in sketches, Elias's journal his confessor. Pages filled with Thomas's memory. His hand in mine under stars that judged no one. Did Ryan see him whole or just the story? Fracture peaked mid-February. Blizzard howling. Ryan's editor summoned him to Albany, snow or no, for a pitch meeting. 2 days tops, he promised, kissing Jacob fierce at the door. But texts dwindled. Stuck in traffic, then silence. Jacob paced, phone clutched like lifeline, imagination spinning worsts. Wreck on icy 87, or worse, Ryan realizing small-town love paled city ambitions. Dawn broke gray, no call. He drove to Albany unbidden, wipers slashing panic, arriving at Ryan's sister's brownstone soaked and wild-eyed. She answered puzzled, "Robe askew." "Jacob? Ryan's not here. He's at the office late night." The Gazette building loomed fluorescent, Ryan's desk lamp a beacon. But inside, voices. His, low and laughing, entwined with another's, deep timbre, intimate. Jacob froze in the doorway, heart plummeting. Ryan shoulder to shoulder with a colleague, broad-shouldered editor type, hands gesturing close, easy as lovers. Betrayal's knife twisted, not affair, but exclusion. The story, their story, spun without him. "Jake!" Ryan startled, rising. "What? You left me out." Jacob's voice shattered quiet. "The pitch, it's Elias, us, and I'm the footnote?" Ryan's face crumpled. No, it's bigger now. National exposure. For us. For you. Jacob backed away, pendant heavy as lead. I trusted you with my broken parts. You turned them into copy. The drive home blurred tears and sleet. Willow Creek a white void. Lydia found him in the barn. Hayloft perch. Journal open to Thomas's farewell. Boy troubles? She ventured, climbing ladder with thermos grace. Worse. Heart troubles. He spilled it, the visit, the scene, the fear that love, like history, gets edited for appeal. She nodded sage. Love's messy, like farming. Weeds in the rows. But pull 'em all, nothing grows. Her hand squeezed. Talk. Before the frost sets. Days passed radio silent. Ryan's texts unread. The co-op opening loomed, ribbon-cutting Saturday, town brass attending. Jacob threw into prep. Banners strung, tables laden with local wares. Distraction dulled the ache, but nights amplified it. Bed vast and cold. Friday Eve. Knock echoed. Ryan? Snow-dusted. Eyes shadowed. Can I come in? Porch light cast long shadows. Jacob leaned on the rail, arms crossed. Say your piece. I screwed up. Ryan's breath fogged. The pitch, it was our truth, but I got greedy. Spotlight over substance. Called it off this morning. Told them it's not mine to sell. It's ours. He stepped closer, vulnerability raw. You're not a footnote, Jake. You're the whole damn book. Jacob's resolve cracked. Then why does it hurt like erasure? Because I erased you in that moment. Forgive me? Ryan's hand extended, palm up. Offering, not taking. Jacob took it. Pull inevitable. Bodies colliding in snow-muffled embrace. Inside, by fire, apologies wove into whispers. Kisses mending fissures. No more solos, Jacob murmured, pendant chains tangling. Duet or nothing. Renewed, they faced the opening. Jacob's speech halting at first, then soaring. This mill ground more than grain. It ground secrets into dust. Today we reclaim them. Stories, loves, lives. Applause thundered. Evelyn in front row beaming. Lydia beside her, proud. Success swelled. Sales boomed. Grants trickled for expansions. Ray's trial approached, plea bargain in air. Arson reduced to misdemeanor. Community service at the co-op. Jacob visited again, alone, plexiglass a thinning veil. Help us rebuild, he said. For Elias. Ray's nod was grudging, then genuine. For peace. Spring teased with thaws. Mud seasons mess mirroring men's. Ryan proposed collaboration, a podcast, LGBT Echoes, interviewing erased voices nationwide. Jacob illustrated episodes, voice steady on mics sharing Elias's arc. Romance deepened, roots delving. Picnics by the creek, hands linked open. Drives to Brooklyn, tracing Elias's haunts. Speakeasy ghosts in hipster bars. One June Eve, under fireflies, Ryan knelt by the bridge. Marry me, Jacob Hawthorne. Let's write the ending they denied. Tears yes, ring simple, thistle-etched band. Lydia baked cake, town toasted at the diner. But humanism's hue-tempered joy. Not all mended. Some scars scarred deeper. A cousin cut ties, church pews thinned for them. Yet in the balance, grace. Evelyn's passing that fall, peaceful, locket bequeathed. Her funeral, interfaith, celebrated Tommy and Eli, love eternal. Jacob's chapbook reissued, bestseller in queer-lit circles. Invites poured, Manhattan readings, but Willow anchored now, farm and mill home. Conflicts embers glowed occasional, bigot letters, old hurts surfacing. But with Ryan they faced, unbowed. Summer unfurled lazy in Willow Creek. Humidity heavy as unspent confessions. Fireflies scripting Morse in twilight fields. The engagement ring caught sun on Jacob's finger. A quiet gleam amid the co-op's bustle looms humming. Kills glowing with fresh glazes. Ryan, ever the catalyst, had roped him into a wedding planning committee that felt more town revival than nuptials. Potluck receptions, wildflower crowns from local foragers, vows exchanged on the creek bridge at dusk. Humanistic, not Hollywood. Ryan insisted over blueprints at the kitchen table, pencil tucked behind ear. Lydia nodded, adding, "And pie. Lots of pie." Jacob laughed, but beneath bubbled the old churn. Fear that joy, like spring thaw, unearthed landmines. Ray's community service commenced. Awkward shifts at the mill, sanding floors under Jacob's design sketches, eyes downcast. First week, silence reigned. Second, grunted hellos. By month's end, over lunch pails, Ray ventured, "That thistle mark Elias's?" Jacob nodded, wary. "His and Thomas's. Strength in spite." Ray's sigh carried decades. "I envied it, boy. Thought it weakness. My own boy, your cousin, ran off at 16. Never said why. Now I wonder." The admission hung, bridge beam extended. Jacob clasped his shoulder, brief but binding. "Welcome back, uncle." Betrayal's ghost lingered subtler now, in media ripples. A conservative blog branded their story revisionist filth, stirring national static. Fox segments decrying woke history. Hate mail spiked, one envelope powdered white with cornstarch scare. Ryan fielded calls, voice steel. Truth isn't filth. Denial is. Emotional undercurrents swelled personal. Podcast tapings unearthed raw. A guest, World War II vet's son, sobbing mid-interview over inherited shame. Jacob held space, but post-session, collapsed on the porch, Ryan's arms insufficient anchor. What if we're just reopening wounds? For clicks. Ryan's hold tightened. Or healing them. Look around, folks listen because they need to. He was right. Feedback flooded. Letters of gratitude. Closets creaking open. A young listener drove from Syracuse, outing himself tearful at the co-op. "Your voices, they made mine possible." Jacob hugged him fierce, thistle pendant shared in solidarity. Romance, though, tested in intimacy's forge. Wedding neared, September equinox, symbolic balance, and stresses frayed threads. Ryan's ambition itched. Offers from DC outlets, investigative pods on queer rights. "Think about it," he'd say, maps unfurled. "Bigger impact." Jacob's gut nodded. Here is impact. Willow's our root. Arguments simmered. Accusations of small-mindedness, counters of selfishness. One night, post-fight, Jacob slept attic, trunk sentinel. Elias's letter reread by lantern. "Find your Thomas. Love fierce." Dawn. Ryan climbed up, blanket draped, eyes red-rimmed. "I packed the maps. Stay." Reconciliation was slow burn. Apologies over dawn patrol coffee, then lovemaking deliberate, reaffirming boundaries. "We're nomads with anchors," Ryan conceded. "You, the farm. Me, the stories. Together." August brought Evelyn's memorial. A lakeside gathering, ashes scattered where Thomas fished as boy. Jacob read her favorite. Rilke's letters to a young poet, voice carrying over waves. Ryan filmed discreet, for the pod's tribute episode. Back home, unpacking her trunk yielded treasures. Tommy's dog tags, a locket sketch mirroring their pendants. "Full circle," Jacob whispered, tracing metal. Town wove tighter. Ms. Hargrove's retirement bash doubled as co-op fundraiser, fiddles and fiddlesticks till midnight. Lydia danced with Ray, awkward two-step but steps forward. Jacob watched, Ryan's chin on shoulder. "Your family's fractal. Broken, beautiful." Climax crested unexpected. Wedding eve. A storm rolled biblical. Thunder cracking like judgment. Winds shearing branches. Power flickered. Guests canceled. Jacob paced bridge site, wildflower-sodden, heart-mirroring squall. Postponed? Or cursed? Ryan pulled him under overhang, rain sheeting. Or baptized. "We'll do it anyway, small, true." They called intimates. Lydia? Ray? Paroled? Tentative. Ms. Hargrove? Co-op crew. 10 souls, umbrellas blooming. Ceremony dawned clearing, sky bruised violet yielding blue. Bridge decked simple, thistle garlands, lanterns unlit by sun. Ryan in linen shirt, eyes hazel warm. Jacob in flannel vest, ring glinting promise. Vows echoed river murmur. "I vow to love you fierce, through erasures and echoes," Ryan said, voice steady. And I, to bloom beside you, thorns and all. Jacob replied, tears salt on lips. Kiss sealed, crowd whooping soft. Reception in the barn. Hay bales seats, cider toasts. Fiddler playing, Danny Boy transitioned Whitman ode. Ray approached hesitant. Envelope proffered. Deed to the old Riley plot. Yours. Plant something there. For them. Jacob hugged him, first time unforced. Thank you. Night deepened stars. Guests departed, leaving newlyweds to bridge vigil. Blanket wrapped, they talked futures, pod expansions, farmstead B&B for queer travelers, kids maybe, adopted dreams. Humanity's in the building, Ryan said, hand on Jacob's. Ours. Fall gilded leaves, co-op thriving, tourists snapping thistle teas, locals reclaiming narratives. Podcast hit 10K downloads, invites to pride panels. But humanism tempered. A call from Ray's wife, reconciliation tentative over coffee. Hate's heavy, she admitted. Lighter now. Jacob's second book, Bridgewater, novelized Elias's arc. Fiction-rooted truth. Bestseller whispered. Manhattan launch, Ryan beside, but homeward pull stronger. Winter whispered again, snow soft. Pregnant pause, no, not literal but metaphorical. Lydia's cancer diagnosis, early, treatable. Family rallied, Ray driving chemo runs, Jacob bedside readings from thistles. Proud of you, son, she whispered, hand frail but firm. Loved, always. Remission came spring. Garden planted Riley plot. Thistles wild, tomatoes tame. Ryan's pod won award, webby, small but shining. Jacob's illustrations graced covers, voice guesting episodes. Years layered, seamless. Anniversaries bridge renewed, vows evolved. A son adopted, Elias Thomas, toddling thistles. Willow grew, Mill Museum wing. Hawthorne Riley Gallery, artifacts displayed reverent. Betrayals? Faded footnotes, lessons etched. Love's drama played daily, arguments over bedtime stories, romances in rain. Human whole. Decades distilled Willow Creek to essence. Ridges etched deeper, but hearts softer, thistles seeding hillsides like defiant stars. Jacob, silver-threaded at 58, stood bridge rail leaned. Elias Thomas, now 16, lanky poet with Ryan's hazel eyes, flipping journal facsimile. Grandpa Eli's words. They feel like mine, the boy said, voice cracking adolescence. Jacob smiled, pendant worn thin as memory. They are. Carry 'em light. Ryan approached, arm slipping waist familiar, gray crowning auburn. Dinner's on, Lydia's stew, or Ma insists. At 75, she ruled farmhouse kitchen tyrant benevolent, cancer a conquered ghost. The meal sprawled generations. Ray, stooped but stories sharp, recounting mill mischief. Ms. Hargrove's successor, young queer archivist, sharing digitization triumphs. Elias's letters online, global accesses ticking. Talk meandered. Co-op expansions to solar looms, pod archives donated Cornell, pride floats willow-led. Post-feast, porch rockers creaked confessions. Elias Thomas cornered Jacob. School, they tease. The gay grandpa's kid. Hurt fresh, unscarred. Jacob knelt eye level. Tease back with truth. Your thistlebred, unbreakable. Hugged fierce, boy nodded resolve. Ryan watched, later whispering bedward. Echoes, huh? Full circles a helix, spiraling up. Sleep-wove dreams. Elias and Thomas, translucent, nodding approval. Lydia young, stitching quilts of acceptance. Ray unburdened, laughing free. Morning brought ritual, creek walk, hands linked, discussing legacies. The gallery thrived, school trips mandatory. Lessons in erasure's cost, love's ledger. Jacob's trilogy capped, Thistle legacy, memoir verse, Oprah endorsed, scholarships funded for rural queer youth. Yet drama lingered life's weave. Ryan's hip falter, surgery slow. A cousin's reconciliation, wedding invite mending old rifts. Human frailties, romantic resiliences. Climax revisited subtle. Anniversary storm. Echoes of '09 gale. Power out. Lanterns lit. Vows reaffirmed impromptu. Fierce still. Ryan murmured, lips brush. Kissing deepened, time translucent, youth's fire-tempered gold. Years accelerated, Elias Thomas off to NYU, film major, pod guest inaugural. Lydia's 90th town parade. Ray's passing quiet heart, like Elias, while stippling co-op endowments. Note, forgive my thorns. Bloom on. Jacob eulogized, uncle taught late. Hates learned, love innate. Ryan's book, Unearthed Voices, Pulitzer Whisper, Oral Histories, Jacob forward. Into 60s they traveled light. Brooklyn haunts, Italian foxholes traced. At 70, bridge rebuild, steel strong plaque. For Elias and Thomas, Jacob and Ryan. Loves that endured. Grandkids came. Adopted nieces brood. Tumbling thistles. Story hours. Once, a letter hid secrets. 80s dawned creaky. Joints ache, but holds tight. Willow modernized, solar mill, Pride Month festivals. But core unchanged. Community quilted, flaws patched. Betrayal's final bow. Archived letter surfaced, from Thomas's CO. Apology inked. I looked away. Shame mine. Jacob read aloud. Tears communal catharsis. 90s whispered. Ryan first. Pneumonia swift post-holiday. Bedside, Jacob held hand. Pendant exchanged. Wait for me, North Star. Funeral bridgeside. Snow soft. Eulogies flowed. Elias Thomas directing doku. Thistle eternal. Jacob spoke last. He was my fierce. Ours. Widowhood hollowed, but filled gradual. Writings poured. Grandkids' laughter. Co-op consultations. Lydia followed 2 springs later. Garden bedded. Quilts shrouding. Jacob lingered. 92. Attic perch final. Trunk open. Letters fanned. Cycles complete. Elias Thomas visited. Film rough cut screened. Their story, epic intimate. Grandpa, boy said. You ended it right. Jacob smiled faint. No end. Just bloom. He slipped quiet that night. Ryan waiting, thistles eternal. Willow mourned, then celebrated. Gallery wing Jacob Ellis Hawthorne. Pendants displayed. Annual bridge vigils. Lanterns infinite. Humanistic close. Not flawless triumph, but flawed grace. Erasures etched. Loves illuminated. In America's heartland, thistles thrived. Roots deep, blooms bold.